Finding and setting up an optimum nursery space for growing your young trees is essential for your tree nursery to be successful and sustainable into the future. In this episode, we'll look at all the things you need to consider to get this right. First, we'll look at how to choose the right space, and then all the elements you need to build your nursery.
Here at Moor Trees, our tree nursery is in an allotment site, and we've converted it to a community tree nursery. You may find that you have access to private land. It may be that you can contact your local authority and they'll be able to provide you with an allotment, or it may even be a small corner of the local park. When setting up your tree nursery, it's very important to think about workflow. And so here we have our stratification troughs where we overwinter our seeds. Once they've started to sprout and germinate, those seedlings will be taken straight into the polytunnel where they will start to mature. Following that, we will then take the seedlings out into bare root beds or into our root trainers. And all the time it's very important that you have water close by. Whether that water is mains water or your rainwater harvesting, or whether or not you have your own irrigation system. In your tree nursery, you will more than likely be planting your trees directly into the earth. It's important that you choose a site, ideally where the soil conditions are really good, and if they've got deep loam soils, that's fantastic. But really, you can recondition the soil and you can dig in organic matter, grit and so forth, but certainly never pick a site that is really waterlogged. And it's also difficult if you were to pick a site that's very exposed to grow trees in. Here we have what we call our bare root beds. Bare root because we're growing them in the earth. These beds are all about 5 meters long and about 1.5 meters wide. And so we know when we plant our trees, we can plant about 220 to 250 trees, depending on the species and how big it's going to grow. This is very simply had the turf removed. It's then been dug over. It's had some organic matter added. And then the trees from seedlings have been planted out, and you can see that these hawthorn have already taken. These trees will be ready to go out into a woodland in about 2 years' time. However, we, with our beds, like to have boarding around them. It discourages the grass from creeping in, so it reduces your weeding effort. It also means if you're mowing or strimming, again, you can't damage the bed and you can't damage the trees within the bed. This metal framework we have here is quite simply to put a net over it. It's an enviromesh, and therefore pests and disease such as moths and caterpillars can't get through and cause damage to the trees. It also protects against frost and offers some shade. And with that, it keeps the moisture within the bed because it reduces evaporation and transpiration rates of water. And it's a very, very simple setup. With the timber and this galvanized metal framework, this bed could give you a good 10-15 years of good service. You may also be taking cuttings from willow, a wet-loving species. And to reduce the maintenance, we've created these water baths. So we've just used a pond liner. We've sit the cuttings within the tree cells, the root trainers, inside the bath, and we either top it up with water or we let the rain just do that naturally. But it means that these trees can very happily grow, and there is very, very little maintenance that we have to do. You've seen how we grow trees in the ground and also in the water troughs. We do grow them in root trainers too. And for that, we've built these large tables on which we can place the root trainers so it's easier to work with them. We're growing thousands of oak trees, but one of the problems is squirrels love our oak trees and they will take the acorns. And therefore, we've had to construct these large cages in which to keep the squirrels off the root trainers and stop them eating the acorns so our trees can grow. As a charity, we grow trees and we plant woodland. Sometimes the landowners want tree species that we haven't grown, and so to complement our planting, we will buy those tree species in. It's really important in terms of biosecurity that those trees, they're clearly labelled and are kept separate from the trees that we have grown from seed. You may not only grow your trees from seed, you may also take some cuttings, and therefore you'll need to protect those cuttings, and we have made these cold frames. It's a timber structure and then we've wrapped that in a plastic, and underneath here the cold frame keeps the temperature in here fairly constant and also holds the moisture in, thus protecting the plants. It's good to have an area set aside as well where you can grow things like comfrey or indeed even just nettles. These can be used to make a soup which can then be put onto the trees as a nutrient feed. One of the important things to consider when you have a tree nursery is biosecurity. It's really important to control the potential for pests and disease to be brought into the site. And one of the ways that we can bring those in is on our feet. And so, very simply, we have at our entrance a boot wash facility. And within this, we have some disinfectant. Dip my boots. And if my boots were very muddy, then we also have some additional cleaning equipment with some brushes and hoof picks in here. If your tree nursery is in a rural setting like ours, you may also wish to consider security. You will have tools on site, and so therefore you may wish to have a gate and a fence. The other advantage of having large fences is these fences will keep the deer out of the tree nursery and stop them nibbling your trees. Access is also important, and if you're quite a long way from the road, then you may wish to make sure that you have access into the site with a vehicle, because once you've lifted all those trees and you're getting ready to plant them out for the winter, that can be quite a heavy operation. Other things you might want to consider is somewhere to do your own composting, and certainly somewhere to store compost if you're bringing it onto the site. There's secure storage for your tools. There's covered workspace for wet weather working, hand wash facilities, toilets, and also you may wish to have access to power if you're going to refrigerate some of your seeds.
Once you have your nursery space set up, even if it's just a small space with the basics, you're ready to get out and collect some seeds. In the next episode, we'll be out in Dartmoor's ancient woods, showing you how to find trees to collect seeds from and making sure that you're collecting the right seeds.